Meeting for the Career Center. I want to turn it over to the BLPC chair and the PFRC chair for some opening remarks.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm Sarah Steinberger. I'm a member, actually vice chair of the Planning Commission. New title. I'm also the PFRC chair. Now I'm going to read the remarks that were just alluded to. Welcome to the March 15th, 2023 joint PFRC BLPC meeting for the Career Center. For the safety of our members and staff, we're holding a hybrid meeting today. Some but not all participants are joining remotely. As this is a hybrid meeting, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid and virtual environment and cover a few specifics that how today's meeting will run. Today's meeting is available to join from the calendar invite via the Microsoft Teams link, the PFRC webpage, and county events calendar, and on today's agenda. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use that. If anyone loses internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone using the aforementioned phone number. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon. Turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize static interference. For everyone joining us via Teams, please turn off your video feed. I will address when it is appropriate to turn it on in a moment. When called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located on your meeting command bar. The moderator does not have the ability to unmute you. I'll repeat, the moderator does not have the ability to unmute you. The meeting chat is active to serve only three purposes: for participants who need technical assistance, for other attendees to pose brief/clarifying questions to the larger audience. While these will be monitored, they will not be formally acknowledged. Staff may, however, decide to address these comments as appropriate. And for attendees who wish to register to make a public comment, if you're interested in making a public comment, please type into the meeting chat your name and the agenda item on which you wish to comment. Meeting chat should not be used for discussion or any inappropriate statements. Those who are planning to provide public comment will still need to do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat will not serve as that opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony period. Additional notes to PFRC members: if PFRC members wish to be recognized to speak on an item, please turn your video feed on and leave your microphone muted. I will use video feeds that are on as an indicator that you would like to speak. Once you have been recognized, you may unmute. Once you have completed speaking, please turn your video feed back off and remute yourself. I will add that. Do we have any commission members who joined us via Teams or phone today without the video option? Okay. But they're on Teams, not just phone, correct?
We have two people who joined by phone.
Are they members of the public or members of the PFRC BLPC? Do we know?
We don't know.
Okay, let's try to figure that out. Because we'll ask those just on the phone if you're a member of the either public, you'll be recognized for public comment again, should you so desire, or if you're a member of the BLPC or /PFRC, I will be checking periodically for the phone attendees to see if you have comments. A couple additional notes for our public speakers. You'll be called on to speak at the end of the meeting. You will be muted when your time has concluded. Lastly is the public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to Freedom of Information Act requirements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now turn it over to APS staff and their consultants to give us a presentation on the use permits.
Thanks, Brett. I guess I'll lead off. Steve Stricker, Senior Project Manager with Arlington Public Schools. Great to see everybody in person. It's a little bit different. A couple introductions before we get started. And I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine McDuffie, the principal with Stantec Architects, who will be doing the presentation. But I also want to recognize Margaret Chung, who is the principal of the Career Center, has joined us tonight as well. So, we also have Jeff Chambers, the Director of Design and Construction, virtually. So with that, turn it over to Jasmine.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you everyone for having me tonight. We're going to start a couple of items in terms of project overview. These items are items that were approved by the school board on October 27, 2022. For the proposed schematic design, so these are the project requirements that were approved at that point. So the school's calculated capacity was approved, the instructional programs that are part of the project, that were identified in the ed specs. The total estimated project cost, site facilities, which I'll go over when we look at the site plan, the approximate building size, and the year of completion, which is December 2025 for the new ACC, and the summer of 2027 for the remainder of the construction phases. In terms of the project schedule, the items that are checked are items that we've completed, phases we've completed. So we are, as has been mentioned, we are currently in the use permit process. We're in the first meeting. Meeting number 7 of the community engagement meetings that we've had for this project. In terms of the use permit, the board will have a meeting on June 2023. There will be an additional community meeting in October as part of the pre-construction activities for the project. And the school board will act on the construction contract in November of 2023. And at the bottom is just a reminder of those dates. The UACC construction starts December 2023, with the completion date of 2025, and the project completion of 2027. In terms of the project phasing, there's 4 phases to the project. The first phase starts this summer, and starts with the demolition of Fenwick and the rebuild of the MPSA playground. Phase 2 is the construction of the new ACC. Phase 3 is the partial demolition of the existing ACC and construction of the new parking garage. And phase 4, the final phase, is the construction of the synthetic field where the existing parking lot is located. This is a diagram showing the existing conditions on the site as it is right now. And the following slides are taken from the previous BLPC PFRC meeting number 6 presentation that was done at the completion of the SD phase. At that time, we were still looking at the base spec option of the new ACC as well as the alternate. So this side diagram shows the base spec, and you'll see in this diagram that the proposed new ACC extends all the way to 7th Street. That's primarily the difference between the two. And this shows the alternate option that was the setback off of 7th. As previously mentioned, the school board approved the base spec option. This is a first floor plan showing the major programs in the building that provide access to the community. And this is the showing, again, the base spec option. And these diagrams show the floor plans, 2nd floor through 5th floor, that were in place at that time. Just a reminder of the aerial view of the building design at that time. This shows the base aspect, the full build out 7th Street. And this is a view of the parking garage looking down 9th Street schematics. The following slides show the refinements that we've made to the design based off of feedback we received from APS staff as well as from county staff. I'm going to go through just a couple of highlights of those changes, and then I'll point those out as well as we go through some of the updated imagery. So in terms of the site, you'll notice that there will be some additional bioretention areas that we've located along South Walter Reed. We've looked at adding some additional ADA parking along 7th, as well as along South Walter Reed Drive. The animal relief area was moved to South Walter Reed Drive to provide direct access to that space from the animal science lab within the building. We've taken a look at refining the automotive service drive in the tree box area. The landscape architect has taken a look at the concrete pavement pattern in the curbless environment in the pedestrian plaza. And we've added some additional planting areas on the north side of the ACC and some bioretention areas and a secondary entrance off of 7th. In terms of the new ACC, you'll notice that the main entry canopy shape and configuration has been refined. We looked at the overhang on the the west side of the 5-story mass of the new building and eliminated that. The massing of the building along 7th Street is 3 stories, but you'll notice that it's pulled back from 7th Street quite a bit. And at that time, we were looking at a mechanical basement to house mechanical units. And due to cost considerations, we are putting those mechanical units on the roof. So you'll see a slight increase in terms of that roof screen enclosure on the third floor. And the interior of the building layouts will continue to be refined with APS staff. In terms of the garage, you'll notice that the footprint has been revised, a little narrower and a little longer. We've gone with a more efficient layout and looked at eliminating the speed ramp that was in the middle of that garage. And you'll notice that it'll be a flat parking area and a sloped parking area. The stair towers are precast panels with window openings. We've eliminated the projecting metal fins and replaced those with metal panels. The metal panel design has further been refined, and canopies have been added at the main entrance to the garage, as well as at the stair elevator lobbies. And there's been some screen walls added to South Highland Street to shield the view to the existing ACC service drive and garage transformers. In terms of curbside management, the traffic consultant has been studying this as well and making some refinements. Some highlights in terms of additional combination of pickup drop-off queues for the Career Center and MPSA. They want to make sure they provided enough space to accommodate pickup and drop-off areas, primarily on South Highland Street. But we've also looked at providing some additional loading and unloading parking spaces near the building entrances. And we've also, as I mentioned earlier, added some ADA spaces along 7th Street here, as well as here and here near the new ACC entrance, as well as near the library. This is the updated refined site plan. The bow tension areas, as I mentioned, are along South Walter Reed. The top lot here, that still remains, and then the animal relief area is here. The pattern of the concrete paving, you can notice that. And we've added some additional fire retention areas and tree areas located near the entrances, just to address some of the county's concerns about views on this edge of the building and how students traverse the site from bus drop-off areas. This is an updated first floor view of the new ACC. Major components, major programs called out again. And this is the main entrance. We also have a secondary entrance off of 7th. I'll go back a little bit also to point out that this north end of the building is set back from 7th Street, which is a little bit different than the base S-spec, which came up further closer to the curb line. These are the updated floor plans as they are now between the 2nd floor and 5th floors. The building height hasn't changed in terms of the overall elevation. As I mentioned earlier, the building mass near 7th Street is 3 stories, as opposed to the first floor that was previously. In terms of building materials, we are looking at masonry, metal panel, some phenolic panel, accents, as well as curtain wall and storefront. This is an updated aerial view from the southeast corner. So you can see the refinements made to the canopy to allow for some additional trees and green space near the entranceway. The bioretention areas that are located along South Walter Reed allow for all of the rainwater from these roofs to be diverted into those spaces. The building continues to step back off of South Walter Reed Drive. We locate the taller 5th-story mass further away from that streetscape. And then you notice the screen enclosure still set back from the edge of the roof, but you can see the additional mechanical units there. This is an aerial view from the northwest, looking at the whole west facade here. This is that top lot that services the teen parenting and early childhood programs. And you can see the canopy and entrance off of 7th Street and the setback that building has off of that edge of that street. This is the 5-story mass on the southwest corner. And we're maintaining a service drive that's screened in that services the automotive programs. while maintaining the tree moss area to provide shade for students. This is a street level view of the main entrance. Again, the further refinements of the canopy. We've taken a closer look at refinements to this lower first up floor elevation. We're looking at materials, using more durable materials at the street level, so raising the height elevation of the storefront. And you can see how the building tiers and steps back away from South Washington Drive. This is a street view from, you're on 7th Street, parking. You'll be seeing the MPSA playgrounds, but beyond, you'll see the top lot. And again, that entrance off of 7th Street. This is a view if you're standing on South Highland Street looking at the west side of the facade. The green open space is the synthetic field in the middle, and the curbless environment, seeing a lot of concepts for pedestrian plaza opportunities there. We also made some refinements to the garage exterior. We're maintaining the use of metal panels and gradient colors to provide energy to the facade, but using some color to highlight, graphics to highlight the entrance to the garage in terms of vehicular entrance. We are maintaining openings into the stairwells to provide security and visibility into the garage. This is the view of the garage looking down 9th Street. And so again, another view of those screen panels. This is the edge of the garage which ramps up. So the panels tend to ramp up with the garage facade. And this is a view of the stair that's closest to South Highland Street with the canopy and signage identifying the entrance to that stair tower, as well as the glazing to provide views and for security. And this is the image of the screen enclosure to seal views into the service drive and any transformers that serve the garage. In terms of next steps, design development, which is the phase we're in now, is complete in April. And with construction documents being complete in August. In terms of the use permit process, and this is our meeting number 7, there are 2 additional meetings planned, one in April and one in May. Reminder that county board meetings in June, and there'll be another meeting in October prior to construction. And then the school board again in November 2023 to review the construction contract. That completes our review.
Okay, thank you.
So before we do the county staff presentation, Chris has a good idea. We should go around and introduce ourselves. So we're going to take a pause. We're going to do that. Apologies that I missed that step when I was doing the opening remarks, but we will course correct now. I did actually introduce myself, but in the interest of everyone introducing themselves, I'll do that again. Sarah Steinberger, Vice Chair of the Planning Commission, joined by my VOPC co-chair.
Ted Black.
We'll go this way around the table and then we'll hit virtual peoples.
Kate Donahue, Forestry and Natural Resources Commission.
Steve Stricker, Senior Project Manager with APS.
Chris Kreider, Planning Staff, Arlington County.
Christy Saward, Arlington Heights Civic Association Co-President. After 5 years, I got somebody to join me.
Christine Brittle, I'm representing the Penrose Civic Association.
Martini, I'm the Director of Career Technical Adult Education, Arlington Public Schools.
Let's do the table and then we'll do internet, virtual people. So you, or let's do the table and then we'll do the around the table.
Okay. I, DeMarco, student at the Career Center.
Great.
Margaret Chung, principal, Career Center. I wonder if we just, Alejandro is our other student.
Oh, hi. Oh, that's fine. I was going to do the side seats as well.
My name is Alexandra Garcia, and I am representing the English Learning Language program.
Kim.
I'm K1 Kim, and I'm representing the Arlington Tech Advisory Committee.
I am Bethany Heim. I'm Parks Department staff.
Olivia Sontag from the Community Housing or Planning, Housing and Development.
I'm Brett Wallace with planning, also the PFRC liaison.
Jasmine McDuffie, architect. I'm Cynthia Holman with the BLPC. I think a citizen. I'm also on the TAC committee.
Back here.
Laura Schaub, Arlington County Planning.
Heidi Liu, architect with.
This is Stangle Planning and Evaluation from ADS.
Daryl Johnson, Director of Strategic Outreach, UPS.
Did we hit everyone in the room? Okay, internet people. Starting left corner, we're going to start with Jeff Chambers. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff Chambers, Director of Design and Construction with Arlington Public Schools. Sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight.
Well, my eyesight's not good enough to call him. Okay. Jasmine, we already heard from you. Oh, take it away. Oh, you're muted.
Robert Gibson, Arlington County DES Transportation.
Great, thank you.
Renee Harbour, Assistant Superintendent for Facilities and Operations for Arlington Public Schools.
Thank you. Michelle, you're muted.
Hi, I'm Michelle Van Laer. I'm the program coordinator for Arlington Tech at Arlington Career Center.
Is there anyone? There's a couple additional people who are just online. Wow, my eyesight's bad. Okay, please.
I'm Kathleen McSweeney. My camera isn't working. Sorry, I don't know how to turn it on.
Thank you, Kathleen. Nick, do you want to go next?
Hi, Nick Carrasco, the Arlington Heights Association.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm Rosa Cheney. I'm with the BLPC and representing the APS Facilities Committee, the Advisory Council on Facilities, et cetera.
Thank you. They're on Laura. Oh, that's you. Oh, never mind. Hi. Just kidding. That was.
Hello. This is Stephen Linkus, Chief of Staff, Arlington Public Schools.
Thank you. And I think we had a couple people who were. Oh wait, yep. Marion.
Hi, this is Marion Gooderham with the Columbia Heights Civic Association.
Thank you, Marion. Do you think that's everyone? Are there phone only people that I need to?
They have dropped off.
They have dropped off
virtually now.
Got it. Okay,
So
no more
no more
phone only people. Okay, understood. Thank you. Appreciate everyone taking a few moments to let us do that. And oh, sorry. Hi. Introduce yourself, please. Hello.
Hi, I'm Mehul Vora. I'm a test running parent representative.
Great, thank you. Would you like a chair?
Eventually.
Okay.
Yeah,
We have
all
them.
day.
Not a problem. Okay. Internet people and people in the room, people all represented? Okay. County staff, take it away. Thank you.
All right. Again, my name is Olivia Sontag. I'm a planner with Planning Department, and I'll be ushering this use permit through the use permit process. And just a reminder, I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues from our urban design team, Department of Parks and Recreation, and then we also have joining us virtually Rob Gibson from Department of Environmental Services, if there are questions throughout or towards the end of the meeting. So just a quick overview. Most of us are pretty familiar with this site, and I'm not going to repeat anything that APS has already presented. They did a really wonderful overview. But again, this is the site as it exists today. The proposal encompasses the majority of the site, touches most of the site, bounded by 9th, Highland, 7th, and Walter Reed. So again, we've all kind of heard the proposal. These are the elements that we are focusing on reviewing. So the 5-story career center, the 4-tiered above-grade parking garage, the synthetic turf field, the MPSA play area improvements, the central curbless plaza, the streetscape improvements around the entire perimeter of the site. But I do want to note that this does not include the streetscape adjacent to the existing MPSA building. Other site-wide improvements such as trees, landscaping, and stormwater management facilities. This also involves partial demolition of the existing Career Center building to make room for the above-grade parking garage on the corner of Highland and 9th Street. The Fenwick demolition, which I believe that permit has been applied for and issuance is anticipated somewhere around the summer of 2023 after the school has ceased operations for the year. And then we're also just monitoring different modifications that are being requested through this use permit process. So far, we've identified parking, a parking modification, a height modification because the proposed career center exceeds 45 feet, and then likely some setback modifications. But we will continue to monitor those through the review process. But I did just want to highlight here quickly that there are a few items that are not included in this proposal and that will be included in some kind of future use permit process or review. So those include a gymnasium addition to the existing career center, which we'll kind of point out on the next slide, the MPSA program relocation and demolition of that building, and then again, those streetscape improvements that are adjacent to the MPSA building. And then I just also wanted to note that the existing Career Center, the Columbia Pike Branch Library, and the MPSA building will continue to operate during construction. So again, as Jasmine shared just earlier, here is the proposed site plan. You can see where a lot of those items are located. We can continue to pull this up throughout the conversation this evening. I think it's also been provided in the printed materials. So staff has had an opportunity to provide initial comments on the proposal, and we provided those to APS. So we're continuing ongoing discussion and making revisions where necessary. So just to highlight some of the kind of the thematic comments that we've provided so far, we're continuing to discuss bike lane design along 9th Street and Walter Reed Drive, continuing to talk about design exploration for the plaza and the library entrance, including paving, materials, landscaping, seating, and bollards, the street tree canopy, and landscaping both within the streetscape but also interior to the site, pedestrian circulation through and around the site, ADA parking access and distribution, and then also sustainable design. So the application was originally submitted mid-February. We're now at this evening's March 15th meeting, and we have scheduled or identified several meeting dates that will follow with a June County Board meeting anticipated. From this meeting on, we'll be meeting with the Form-Based Code Advisory Working Group, mostly as an informational item. This is not a form-based code use permit, so they'll not be reviewing it under the form-based code, but they were involved early in the process, so we'll be taking that back to them just as an informational item. Sometime in April or May, we haven't identified the specific dates yet, but we'll be holding some lunch hour virtual public meetings to just focus on some specific elements of the project, allow another opportunity for community input. In May, we'll have another opportunity for a PFRC meeting. We do have another opportunity for one in April if necessary, but we will talk with the chairs towards the end of the meeting about the necessity of that. And then on May 22nd, C2E2, May 23rd, Parks and Rec Commission, May 25th, Transportation Commission, and then we'll finish up with Planning Commission and the County Board meetings. That concludes my presentation. I think we will pass this off to our chairs.
Great. Thank you, Olivia. So at this point on the agenda, as I understand it, we have an opportunity for clarifying questions. So that would be questions with regards to seeking clarification of any of the slides that you've just seen, any information presented in either the APS's presentation or county planning commission, planning staff's presentation. This is not sort of an open discussion yet in terms of I like X or I don't like X. It's more like, is that where the pickup and drop off is going to be located? Or can you please go back to slide such and such? I want to reconfirm where the bike lane is going to be. So does anyone have any questions that either of the examples type that I just tried to elicit? Yes. Hand raised down there.
Yeah, you mentioned that there's an exemption for parking that you have as part of the permit process, but I'm curious what requires an exemption?
So they've requested a modification of parking. We're still waiting to get the numbers on what the extent of that modification is, but that is a common modification requested for these types of projects. What the zoning ordinance requires is likely a much higher parking count number than what the project will deliver.
Could you tell us what the actual, what would be required without an exemption versus what is being proposed?
We haven't been able to provide that yet. I think we're still working on the existing capacity for some of the buildings presently and throughout construction of the site. There's a lot of moving pieces, so that parking requirement changes throughout those phases. So we're still working on with APS on providing some of those numbers throughout the different phases of construction.
At some point you'll provide it, like what it should be and what the shortage.
Correct. Once we have some of those capacity numbers for the site.
I think you used the word significant though, so can you give us a ballpark sense of how many fewer spaces APS is likely proposing?
I'm going to ask Rob.
Yeah, we have Rob Gibson from Department of Environmental Services on, who might be able to provide some of those estimates from earlier in our process.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
So I can't provide the estimates for what APS should be providing, but I can provide some history on why we've approved these modifications in the past. One of the things that we've found is that the existing zoning ordinance calculates two core areas for parking demand associated with high schools particularly. The first is how many students are in the school. That's one element. And then added on top of that, there's a calculation associated with gathering space like the gyms, the auditoriums, and other things. And what we've found in many cases is that that additive amount goes above and beyond the typical demand because it's unlikely that the gym is totally filled with guests on a separate use from the school while the school is in session. And so what we do is we look at a parking demand model to estimate what the parking demand would be. And APS has presented a parking demand estimates as part of their multimodal transportation study. And many of the details associated with that analysis have been discussed in the planning process leading up to the use permit submission. I hope that provides some good grounding.
Great, thank you. Anything else in the clarifying question realm? I had a question. I'm gonna call on you after I ask my question. You mentioned lunchtime kind of open to the public, information sessions. Approximately how many is staff thinking of doing?
Right now we're looking at two, one to focus on transportation and circulation, and then a second to focus on architecture and urban design.
Thank you.
And my question is about, you mentioned that the library will continue to operate during construction, that the county was going to move the library. Has anything changed about the timeline when the library was going to relocate?
Right now, no.
Okay. Well, let us know when you know whether or not there's been a change about when the library is going to vacate.
Yes.
I have a definition question. What is a bosque?
Oh, a tree
Bosque?
boss is
Tree
a
bosque.
row of trees, a grouping of trees.
Okay. I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't something esoteric. And have we determined where the crossings will be, you know, for the kids walking to school or on Walter Reed? Because my memory from previous ones were some of the crossings didn't seem like a natural crossing point, like not at the entrance.
Part of that is part of the Complete Streets project, and perhaps Rob can speak to that as well.
So there's 2 crossing locations currently planned. We are working as part of the Complete Streets project for Walter Reed Drive to signalize the intersection of 9th and Walter Reed. And then there's the existing signalized intersection at 7th and Walter Reed. So those are the 2 principal pedestrian crossings planned currently. However, DES is working with APS to see if there are additional crossings that are appropriate and spaced in an appropriate manner to maintain safety and stacking for vehicles and pedestrians through the Walter Reed corridor.
No, there's not one at the entrance then, right now.
Not mid-block.
Yep.
I have a question. I have 2 questions. My first question is about the library entrance. On slide 12, it looks like landscaping underneath the large pillars that are currently there with the overhang. But that's, I think, the old design. And then in the new design on slide 19, I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I was wondering, are you keeping that overhang, or what is that kind of elongated round green portion? Is that going to be some sort of green space? I mean, not green space, but garden space or something? I'm just wondering how that, right now it's a lane, I guess. Back in the old days when people would drive through and drop their book off. What's that going to look like?
The drive-through remains under the canopy.
It'll just be paved. So the canopy extends out to the green strip.
So it's going to look exactly the same?
Pretty much the same.
Correct, yeah.
And my other question was about the area on South Highland to the west of MIPSA. I know you said some streetscape adjacent to MIPSA will be completed in a future phase. Does that include, does the streetscape include what now is a large blacktop area, or is that going to be improved as part of this project?
So that area around MPSA that you're pointing at, we're installing an artificial turf field there.
Okay.
And then further to the north, that becomes a play area with play equipment.
This will be a play area with play equipment?
Correct, and as you wrap around the building to the north side, the play areas continue down to the east. And then finally, that darker green area is a natural grass field.
So right now, I think the 6-foot fencing stops about here. Are you gonna have any type of fencing? Is it gonna be?
So all of those play areas will be completely fenced in.
How?
The 6-foot fence continues, I believe, kind of down to the end of that play area that you're pointing at. And then it picks up with 4-foot fencing to match the existing fencing that's along 7th Street now. And that'll encompass the entire play area back to the school.
So all of this will be fenced in?
Correct.
But it'll be publicly accessible after school hours?
Correct.
That covered both of your questions? Yes, you told us. Okay. You need a question?
Yeah, on the orientation of the garage, do you remember that there was comment about that vertical, that kind of wedge, that seemingly unused space, and there was a comment about couldn't the garage be oriented to match up with the vertical of the existing career center, therefore putting more public space, on the outside, on the periphery. So why could, obviously that recommendation was rejected.
I'm actually going to stop you. That is not a clarifying question.
Oh, sorry. I asked
Sorry.
her for
That's
one.
okay. And I said,
Okay.
depends on what the question is, but that
Okay, all right.
not going to, that
I'll
is beyond
hold that
clarifying. No, I appreciate that, but we will be discussing parking ultimately.
Okay.
I see a hand raised in the, is that Kathleen?
It is. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm not, I still am not able to fix my camera. Mine was also about the fields or the playground area, and specifically it's about the timing and the availability. So will there be a constant availability of the playground area for the MPSA school? Or are these phased in?
So the play area construction actually is scheduled to occur this summer when school is out. So they should really have no downtime, with the exception of we are trying to start the natural grass turf field in May. And I've spoken with the principal about that. They're willing to give that area up early so that we can get good grow in, so that come fall 2023, that field is available for play.
And what about the toddler spaces as well? Are there some constantly continuously available, or will there be some time when those spaces are available?
During the occupied portion of the school year, the intent is for those to be fully available. So the work on those areas will be done over the summer, such that for fall of 2023, the new play areas will be available.
So that includes the area up near 2 in this. I'm talking about the ones for the preschool at the Career Center.
So those are, oh, I see, for the Career Center. Yeah, those, got to think about that for a minute. So those areas will remain available during construction. And for the new construction, we'll be creating new areas. Once they move the program over, those areas will be available again. So there should be no downtime with regard to those areas.
Okay, so they're continuously available play areas for the students and the toddlers. Okay. Could I ask one more question? Again, it's clarifying, I think.
You may.
You'll stop me if it isn't. I know that, could you walk through how I would park if I'm using handicapped parking in the garage, and how I would get to the proposed Arlington Career Center? Have there been any improvements made to that? And can you review the process?
How about this? I'll allow the first part of the question, but the question with regards to improvements that's going to be punched to the discussion portion. Is that fair, Kathleen?
That's fair.
Would you guys like me to answer that? So the handicap parking within the garage is on the first floor of the garage. And there are 2 stair towers. Jasmine's kind of pointing her cursor at them, both on the west and the east side there. You could come out either of those stair towers. If you're coming out on the west side, you would continue down Highland Street up along the sidewalk and then continue down east to the existing Career Center or the new building, either way. You could also go out the other stair tower on the east side and come down 9th Street and go down Walter Reed to enter either building from that side.
Just a clarification, Steve, is the stair towers do have elevators in them.
Thank you. Question back here?
Sure. Back to the maybe on that parking topic as well, for the whoever's doing the parking demand models, do they have existing student parking data?
So we're not planning on parking students within the garage. Garage parking would be for staff only.
So do we know student parking data?
We do, and the transportation study that we've done indicates there's enough parking in the general area for students.
And is there, do you have data on how many students have ARC passes and if there's any rerouting optimization available?
I don't have that information.
Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Hey, I have one additional question. The curbside management plan, slide 18, will we have the opportunity as part of the permit process to review the under construction curbside management plan? I don't see that as a part of this packet. I'm not sure if that's something that gets reviewed, but obviously since the schools are staying operational during the construction period, and that's obviously one of the big considerations of the neighborhood, is how we'll pick up and drop off work when we have this very large construction project going on. And I don't see a document like that, and I don't know if one exists. I don't know if we can request one exists. So that's just a clarification question about whether we will see that.
Rob, you might respond to that question.
Okay, so I do believe that we will have a discussion from APS on construction operations. And as part of that, they should be discussing the planned pickup and drop off for the continuing operations of both school programs.
But that's not required for the permit.
That is not a required part of the plan submission, but it has historically been part of the PFRC discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't the building permit require traffic?
I'm actually going to go to the person who raised her hand first, and then I'll bump back over to you. Thank you. Yes.
I have a question about the garage on slide 19. Can you clarify where the entrance and exits are? Is 9th Street the only vehicle entrance and exit, or is Highland also?
So the vehicular entrance is off of 9th, where Jasmine's showing on the screen.
It's a service.
And
There
what
are-
is this? What
Yeah,
is
that's
this?
a
here?
service entrance.
What does that mean?
So there'll be generators, transformers back there for the garage, and there's also a dumpster location back there. Building.
It's also where the career center, the existing career center building will receive all supplies, materials, etc. It's quote unquote their loading dock, but it'll be a flat floor loading dock.
So the only vehicles that can come in and out of there will be service type vehicles. And looking at slide, can you just clarify how many levels of parking there are? Slide 29, and is there like also parking on the very top?
There is, so it's 4 levels total.
4 levels?
Including the top.
And how many actual spaces, do you know yet?
We say Jasmine 364.
Thank you.
And sorry, so you had a question?
I was just wondering usually if you expect the building permit to have the traffic management.
A DES question.
Yes, Rob, I don't know if you could hear that question, but he was asking if there's a process to review the parking during construction during the building permit process.
Okay, so just to make sure I got the question clear, does the parking during construction get reviewed as part of the use permit? It doesn't specifically, though we do have a fair amount of discussion about that to ensure that APS has a viable parking solution.
And what about during the CEP process or the building permit process?
Generally, it's going to be a requirement. It may be a requirement of the use permit, and then so it would be established as part of that. And I see Jeff on camera, so I'll let Jeff speak to APS's plans.
Yeah, I think that's part of the premise and part of the design process for this project, that we have to make sure that we have the parking, and we've worked with our parking consultant, and that's one of the reasons why we are staging construction the way we are, is to make sure that we have adequate parking through this construction process. In essence, we have all of the existing parking as shown and currently used on site, plus the ECDC garage. When we build the new construction, all of that remains. When we are finished with the new building, we can remove the relocatables, and that parking gets returned into use as parking on the surface as the new parking structure is constructed. We also would have access to the ECDC garage at the same time. Once the new garage is complete, all of the parking would be moving into the new facility as would be planned for the site, and is in our parking plan, which has been reviewed and has been updated. It was reviewed during the entire process, and it was just updated with current information.
Thank you. I just want to do yes, I do want to do a quick time check, because we do want to also get into the substantive discussion. So I'm going to take the last two hands that I saw, last call for virtual people, and then we're going to jump into discussion. And I think we're going to cover a lot of the same topics in more detail in sort of a substantive back and forth discussion type way. Do not remember your name, I'm sorry, but you.
My name's Kai Marco, student Arlington Career Center. Okay, my quick question is, right now on the west side of the existing ACC building, there's a walkway, which would be then, I guess my clarifying question is, will that walkway be usable for ADA like drivers? And then also, will that, if it's not accessible, is that because of the fencing? Is it because of the security risk with the service entrance? Or like, how would that work? Because I feel like then that goes into like, I guess, personal opinion. But like, that could be a good shortcut walkway or like accessible walkway to shorten their walk across campus. That's my question. So it would cut
this right here.
Yeah, because right now it would cut through that service entrance, which you guys said was fenced in. Okay, so they'd have to walk around. That's right.
Is there a response to the question?
They're just clarifying if they'd have to walk around.
Oh, that was the answer. Right now.
Sorry, I just wasn't. Yeah.
No, that was a good clarifying question. Okay. I just didn't hear the answer.
Yes.
So, okay, thank you. And then we had a hand down here as well.
I'm good. Somebody else can go.
Okay. Well, what I'm actually going to move us towards is the discussion portion. So as far as topics to kind of orient ourselves around the discussion, I think certainly parking is still something we're getting feedback on. I think that would include sort of garage orientation, as it were. So we can include that in that piece of feedback. Site accessibility with regards to both, I think, ADA access, walking and driving, I think is another good topic. What else are kind of general topic areas folks would like to kind of point out here? I'm hearing a lot of feedback on sort of the construction plans. I'm not as certain if tonight there is enough. I'm getting the sense there may not be enough information right now to have a fulsome conversation on what construction plans are looking like. So county staff, maybe what I'm thinking is that needs to be sort of the focus of our next PFRC. We're going to be having another one that I'd like to kind of focus that on construction plans. Just sprung that on you, yay. And we can certainly still have some of the conversation on construction tonight, but I think what we're hearing is that maybe some more information is needed. Kathleen, do you have a topic?
I do. I was going to ask for lighting and trees to be included.
Those are two different topics, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure it wasn't like party trees. Okay.
If you put those under streetscape, that'll be one topic.
Kathleen, are you
That was the
okay?
intent.
No, that's fine. Are you okay with doing streetscape to cover both lighting and trees as one topic?
Sure, sure.
Okay, great. Any other topics we want to put on a topic discussion list?
Is it a green area we should?
We not open space?
Specifically a green area.
Well, I think what you're asking is a clarifying question. We moved into discussion, so I'm going to put that topic under open space. And we'll cover it that way. Okay, anything else? All right, so starting with parking. Anyone want to sort of jump into that?
Can I finish my thing?
Yes, you may. You were very patient, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate your clarification. Okay, so there was it looks like some wasted space. This is a very tight spot or site where it kind of has this V in there. And I heard the comment about there's some service vehicles, but I still think there's something to be said about a different orientation. You would have more space up there that you could still do your drop off of stuff. So that's that orientation question. And I'm so sorry since we're talking about it. I also, and that is very visible on slide 31. On slide 29, it shows that there is an awning. It looks like an awning from the existing career building to the garage. Does that awning mean that there is an access from the garage into the existing facility to facilitate not having to do these huge walk-arounds? There was some discussion about, is there a way to allow people, and it's not students now, these are going to be vetted, approved teachers, accessing the site through that kind of, it looks like an awning, into the existing school and then out to the campus? Two questions.
How you guys would like us to respond on?
Yeah, what do you?
Yes, please respond.
So yes, the canopy does connect the garage with the existing career center building. And yes, there is a possibility that staff going to the new ACC would be able to walk through the existing ACC access. Can't remember your first question.
Go back
First question, Steve, was the orientation of the garage. And we did study the orientation of the garage, and we feel that we need that space for servicing the existing ACC, as well as providing transformer space. There would be service or space provided for future transformer to basically provide a third party the ability to do charging stations in the garage, which is one of the requests that was made. So we really do need space between those buildings, between the garage. You also have fire separations, et cetera, that we need to work with. We did actually skinny down the garage, and we did pull it off of 9th Street, and we did pull it back off of Highland from what was shown before. So we did make improvements to that and still maintain the service yard, which we feel is necessary to operate a full school, because that's the only access that we have there.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about the garage. I know in the PFRC, I know that APS doesn't have the money to underground the garage, but we had talked about the value of the land and whether the county might put some money to pay for an underground garage. And my question is, how much discussion has there been between APS and the county about undergrounding? And if I try to talk to the county about it, am I wasting my time or not?
We've not had those discussions with APS, and I don't.
I wonder
know the answer to
why,
your second
because
question.
for years and years and years, I've said, APS, please talk to the county. County, please talk to the AP. I mean, we've been talking about this for years. And I remember at the last BOPC, PFRC, I asked again, please talk to the county about throwing in some money to underground it, because whatever this land is worth, it's worth more than $30 million or whatever it's worth. But I'm just frustrated that I come to these meetings, you know, we've all spent a lot of time, not as much time as you guys, but just a lot of time on this. And I'm just wondering why I ask this question year after year after year and I get the same answer. What's going on?
So I think that, and I was not chairing the last PFRC BLPC meeting because I just had a baby, so I don't know exactly what conversations happened at that. But I believe in the context of what we presented to school board when we were having that presentation, there was sort of a looking at sort of the what kind of exponentially what like a factor of increase undergrounding the parking was going to look at. And I don't know if anyone still had that access to that information. It might be in remarks that I just don't have. But I think the quantifying what that funding would do to the project, I mean, it's an exponential increase.
No, I said in my preface to all this, I understand APS cannot afford it. My question all along was, why hasn't there been that conversation with the county? The county requires every new building of this scale and size in the county to have an underground garage. Why aren't you talking? I mean, I'll stop going on and on, but I just, I'm not gonna, you know, if, let me ask it in this way. If I went to all my county buddies, which is not true, but went to all my county buddies, that was a joke, and said, underground this, and they're like, oh, okay, let me underground this, let me throw some money at this and underground it. Is it actually too late from an architectural and other perspective? If I try to, you know, what can I do at this point? Because I'm not going to waste my time if it's not possible from a logistical, architectural, et cetera, viewpoint or time where we are now.
I think Rob has raised his hand, so I'm gonna call on Rob to respond to that.
It's actually an APS answer.
Well,
in terms of the timing.
Yeah, I can say from a schedule standpoint to make that change at this point would throw us off schedule. We would not be able to achieve.
What phase is the garage in the process? She's asking.
Well, Chris, it's not quite as simple as that, I don't think.
But that's what she's asking.
No,
I don't think it is.
no, it's not. If you had to redesign the ACC to underground the parking, or is it too late?
Yes, we would have to completely redesign the new ACC building.
I just have to say, I'm very disappointed that those conversations apparently.
We did have those conversations and we did talk about it. We just had the funding to do it. It also is an issue of how do you phase the construction, which was also part of the concern. The conversation and the phasing, the question was asked about where do we park during construction, that was all taken into account, and that we have to step the parking and move parking around to make the whole project itself work. We don't have the luxury of an open lot somewhere that we can park, 250 cars on.
We did have extensive conversations on the pros and cons of undergrounding, putting the garage there, locating it at other places on the site. We did not have conversations with the county on funding.
So to provide a little bit more context in more of a concise answer. So Arlington County, as part of the follow-up to the conceptual design process, did advance discussions with APS about the cost and option and other design options for undergrounding parking on the site. A number of evaluations were done by APS, and then those were, I believe there was a question at the school board about the costs associated with providing underground parking. I believe APS's response was that it would be roughly 2 to 3 times the cost of the structured parking. And APS, please jump in and correct me once I'm done if I've misquoted you. And that information was provided to the school board. And the school board directed APS and approved the plan that you see here today. For context, the garage, I believe, is coming in at maybe $15 million. So if 2 to 3 additional times that is what we're talking about, then that gives you an order of magnitude for costs. That is a rough estimate of design. It is not based on an actual design, and I can kick it over to APS to provide any more clarifying information if needed.
I think what I'm hearing in part is sort of twofold. That it's both a cost issue, whether or not, conversation to have with the county of money coming somewhere else is not just overall a cost issue, and a timing and logistics issue that would also prevent that sort of a pivot at this point in time. So I think that both elements are in play. I'm not saying how to spend your time in terms of going to the county board or not, but I think that
I got my answer.
Okay.
We can stop talking.
Okay. I wanted to apologize because I didn't mean to go off of your topic with regards to the garage siting orientation. I thought that the next comment was going to be a continuation of that conversation, so I do want to give you a chance to respond. So we're going to go back to that.
Yeah, so Jeff, I heard what you said, which is this is what you need, but I just look at that space and it seems to me, I can see that there is still area, you in a little bit different place where you could bring in your trucks and drop off your stuff. So if the team looked at that, can we at least see existing plan and then a plan where the orientation is changed, so you make better space of that, NV thing, and it does give more acreage, whatever, to that corner there.
Yeah, we did look at it both ways. Basically, we just provide green space on the corner that is not usable, and we would have to take play space away from MPSA when it moves there, and they're going to have limited space as it is. So we felt that this was a better way. We gave some space to 9th and Highland, which is green space that it didn't have before because it was pretty much up on the sidewalk on both streets. So we felt that this was a good compromise that served everybody and provided us the space that we need to run.
I'm so sorry, and like Christy, I don't want to belabor this thing, but I don't know down in the, down in here, I don't see how that, to me, that is wasted space. Your vehicles, I don't think are pulling all the way down here. They're going to be up here, up in that upper area, and just wonder if, because I don't know what all these things refer to, like what's that right there? Is that part of the building that's going to be removed?
Future play area.
Okay, so that's future play area. One. Okay, so if all they needed was a truck turnaround, I mean, I'm just wondering if Jeff, if some kind of schematic could be shared with.
We did do a schematic. We'll pull it out. The bottom line is it doesn't provide us. It basically takes more space that was currently usable with this plan for APS and makes it just green space that is not usable. So we have a hard time with that. The other thing is it's going to add cost to the project because we have fire separation between the garage and the existing ACC building, and that space does provide us with that. And also could potentially allow us to get some windows into the existing ACC space to get those learning spaces when it becomes MPSA space that could have windows in the classrooms. So all of those things are part of the consideration that we are looking for and looking at. And we're trying to serve the students because that's really what we do. And at the same time, again, we were trying to compromise and provide more green space on Highland Street.
Steph, I appreciate that, and actually, that's the first time I've heard that thing about windows on the back of the building, so.
Cynthia, to clarify one thing too, deep into the V there is pedestrian connection between the garage and the existing building. So vehicles won't be going down that far. That's actually a pedestrian access way. Which makes sense. It's close. It's the closest point.
Yeah, so I'm agreeing with you, and if it was, I know we're not envisioning a common wall, but, you know, there wouldn't even be a need for an awning, because you just, you know, whatever, walk in, but.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to, if we can go back to the topic of parking, I understand.
We're still on the topic of parking.
Right, okay, right. Back to the, well, not exactly underground parking. I think that one of the primary concerns that I'm hearing and that I share is that it's great that the garage will have accessible spaces. But from the garage to the new ACC building there's not an accessible path. And so ideal would be if the new building had its own underground parking. And for the record, I agree with Christy that this building has underground parking. All other large buildings in Arlington have underground parking. But let's set that aside if it's impossible. My next question would be, can we find more dedicated accessible parking at street level around the building? And I know the curbside management plan has some spaces marked off, but I don't feel like that's adequate. And I think it's not realistic or considerate to have the bulk of the accessible spaces be so far from the new ACC. So are there spaces on the site where we can create more accessible parking? And ideally for the first phase, if not, at the point at which MIPSA gets torn down, which is several phases from now, can we be planning for it then? But I'd like to have some discussion about whether there are additional spaces now that we could carve out next to the new ACC for that accessibility.
I think that's a really good segue into the next topic, which is ADA accessibility. So let's address this question, sort of, bridge that. Who's the best person to respond?
APS should respond to the first question.
So we looked at a number of locations on the site for accessible parking, ADA parking. We feel like it's a better use of money and existing infrastructure to put those on the street. That's why we've suggested, I think we have seven spaces we're recommending, Jasmine.
7.
So that, we did look at areas on site, but it's expensive to do so. It just seems like a better use of real estate to do that curbside.
But
I think the one thing too is we've always looked at this as an urban site, and if you look at an urban site, you don't necessarily have, other than street parking for accessible parking, it's not available. All of our parking on this site is structured parking, and we would be prioritizing the location of the accessible parking for that in that structure. It's the way an urban situation is you don't necessarily have parking by the front door. We are not providing parking by the front door for anybody, and we are making it a pedestrian and bus pickup and drop off. So it's essentially bus, bikes, and pedestrians. And we do not want to add in private vehicles into that, because it is an unsafe situation, and it's what exists on that site right now. Surprising to me that nobody has gotten hurt to this point, because it's just a mix of everything, which is what we're trying to improve the situation as part of this project, and making that a pedestrian way that's for pedestrians, bicycles, and buses. So again, we're treating it as an urban situation, which it is, and it's going to get more and more urban as things move forward, and that's what we're trying to address.
My eyesight is terrible, so I'm going to beg for assistance. Can you highlight on there where there are 7 ADA spots? Yes. And I will tell. It's okay.
And then a couple more on 7.
Okay, and do the first ones again. Here. No, that's okay. No, I need to tell my eye doctor that we need to revisit the situation.
And the garage is only for staff parking, including those ADA spaces.
We have a visitor, I can't remember now.
It's staff, it's visitor, it's library staff, it's everything that we have in the traffic plan that we have for their.
And how many ADA spots are on that first floor of the garage? Are they all ADA spots on the first floor?
No, Jasmine, how many ADA spots are we currently showing in the plan? I don't recall off the top of my head.
I believe there's 10, there's van parking and regular car parking.
Okay.
Eight ADA and one van.
One van. Okay, so it's 9 essentially. Okay. What research or what are we basing that breakdown on, that 9 is the appropriate number for ADA spots in the garage?
It's based on the number of parking spaces provided in the garage. X number have to be accessible spaces.
Okay, thank you. So it's not per se based on kind of a use study for folks using the site. It's a calculation that just has based on number of spaces, period.
It's based on the ADAG requirements.
Okay, thank you. Rob, you've been patiently on video for a while. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know if they're ADAG requirements. I think they're federal ADA standards for parking lots. 2% of the spaces should be ADA spaces. At any point in time, the garage could be restriped to provide additional ADA spaces. So that's just a allocation within that garage. The question about providing on-site ADA spaces is a question that staff has asked and staff has heard repeatedly from the community in the lead up to the submission of the use permit. As it relates to the use of the curb space for ADA parking, one thing that DES is particularly concerned about is we can't guarantee over, let's say, a 60-year lifespan of this site that the needs along Walter Reed are going to be consistent with what we see here today. And the way we manage the street is not necessarily the code requirements or the other requirements for providing ADA parking to the site. We're working with APS to provide handicap parking along South Walter Reed. In the best case, that handicap parking would be ADAG compliant, meaning it would have a 5-foot zone on the an additional 5-foot landing zone on the side of the vehicle and at the back of the vehicles, along with ramps to access the sidewalk. It's likely that we are going to recommend moving the ADA part of the 3 ADA spaces further to the south of the driveway along the main entrance and consolidate ADA parking as being in that zone. We are concerned about the way we're mixing, where this plan mixes pickup and drop off and ADA parking. We want to ensure that ADA parking is provided at all times for those users. We believe, and then as we transition to the 2 additional spaces on 7th Street, we believe that the design that APS has shown is something that we can work into the streetscape, but we still have to do some analysis and work with APS on this area. Thank you.
Okay, and is that the timing for such is, that will be worked out ideally before it goes to planning commission? You're in active conversations now. Give me something.
As far as what we think can be achieved on the streetscape, I think we should be able to provide that at the prior to this going to the commissions and as part of the commission discussion. But as I said, once again, the actual street use that would be maintained by DES over time.
Okay. You had raised your hand before. This is still on parking or ADA,
On
correct?
parking.
Okay.
Do you have an estimate on to how many staff would be wanting to park garage in the Montessori program and then Arlington County Career
So the parking numbers that we've arrived at or are requesting for the garage would allow all staff to park, all staff on the campus to park in the garage.
And you said that the garage, so all staff would be able to park in the garage. That includes libraries? Library?
So I don't think we're including the library accounts because the idea is that they would be moving off-site by that time. But it accounts for staff for MPSA and the ACC program.
And then are there any evening classes? I can't remember in the ACC.
I defer to Margaret, but yes.
Evening classes, yes.
You have your hand patiently raised, please.
I was just gonna jump back to student parking, which you mentioned earlier. So in a previous meeting, I had suggested or talked about the metered parking on 9th Street and whether that was considered to be either unrestricted or time restricted parking for students, whether that be 4 hours, 6 hour, 8 hour, I'm not sure. And I was just curious, I understand that it's very close to Columbia Pike, which is a major street, and that's probably the reason it's metered. But personally, I've never seen anyone like parking there, paying there. So I was just wondering whether you guys like looked at that cost benefit analysis and like how much the county is actually making from that metered parking versus the benefit to the CTE and full-time students, as well as any staff that we're already and will be continuing to compete with for street parking because it is close to the door and we're not allowed to use the garage.
Can I make a comment in support of that statement?
Because the staff's still going to be parking there.
Which is once again kind of like Christy, and I want to associate myself with Christy in undergrounding parking. But one of the things we did talk about was the county giving over control of 9th Street, that section, to APS, so that you could reserve it for these. You expect the students on the site or on the street, you know, whatever. And like Christy said, has there been conversations about undergrounding with the county? Has there been continued conversation about handing over 9th Street for the reasons that you said?
I would also, just as a comment for that, I know that at other like comprehensive high schools, they do parking passes, not just for staff, but for students as well, which are paid parking passes. For example, the WNL student lot is a paid parking passage as well as the Yorktown one. Wakefield does not have that option, but could that be some type of situation that is discussed either with full-time CTE or full-time students on the property that could also then potentially supplement the metered parking that the county would be giving up?
So I
You
think
can answer those
APS
questions.
take the first opportunity to respond. I think Jeff's hand might have been up too, and then I see Rob Gibson's hand up as well.
Jeff, do you want to take that?
Jeff's hand is not up, actually.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
The question revolves around parking for students on 9th Street, Jeff, and basically what our disposition there is.
Or at least the metering on 9th Street.
Right. How it can be reserved or free.
We have requested that, and really, we do not control the streets. The county controls the streets. So it's, you know, we can request anything, but they're going to, you know, approve what they feel is in the best interest of the entire community.
Can this committee request of the county?
The committee can make recommendations to the county board. And so certainly anything that you advance as a committee, that's open. I do want to have a brief discussion about the 9th Street, 1 Street parking. One of the issues that we had left outstanding from the past planning discussions was how to both address all of the needs on 9th Street. So not just the vehicular needs, but also the parking and sidewalks and bike access along 9th. We have, as part of our comments to the initial application, asked APS to look at providing improved bike facilities along 9th Street. And one of the impacts that may have is the possible removal of parking on the south side. And the possibility of incorporating that into the plan, it will be shared with the committee.
I mean, no one parks there today, so.
Can I just make a comment on that? If that's in the works, and if you're currently counting those spaces to accommodate the student demand, you know, before the ink's dry, make sure that we all understand where you expect, I don't know how many spaces those are, but if you're going to turn that into a bike lane, where you expect that student demand along there to go into the community.
I'll just point out on slide 18, the assumption is that there are 179 adjacent spaces to the campus. I personally have a lot of questions about the assumptions that go behind that, partly because some of the spaces are metered and so they're underutilized, partly because, as we all know, the county is proposing a significant zoning change, which could make some streets have a lot less parking. And so all of these spaces that are shown as open, it doesn't take a lot of sixplexes to no longer have those spaces. So if we're making assumptions on the size of the parking garage, assuming that all this street space is open, I'm concerned about that. And I'm also concerned, these spots that are labeled ADA, I was thinking were at least more permanent spots, but if I heard the discussion correctly, that's even all sort of pending county approval and we might not be able to get them permanently. So I feel very strongly that those spaces need to be a permanent part of the campus, pulled in off of the street if we need them to be, whatever we need to do to make sure that those actually exist, that there are adjacent accessible ADA spaces for all of the buildings on the campus that will be occupied with students and staff.
Understood. I do want to keep us moving because we have several other topics and this meeting ends at 9 and we're going to have some public comments. So Kathleen McSweeney has had her hand raised for a while. Kathleen?
Thank you. I think it's a follow-on to what Rob was saying, but I have to confess, Rob, you cut out a little bit and I didn't hear everything you said. But my question is really about the fact that we're adjacent here to this 9th Street Bike Boulevard and the facilities, the bike facilities. I wanted to understand them a little bit better and if there was going to be covered bike facilities and or a shower, because we often provide, especially at schools, I think there is a facility for bikers to actually be able to shower, and will that be here somewhere?
So I can respond to that. We're looking currently at secure bike facilities within the garage on the first floor. I think our latest iteration is showing it near the east stair tower, if memory serves, Jasmine. And then any shower facilities would actually be within the new Career Center building.
There appears to still be another virtual hand that's been up for a while. Whose hand is that?
Stephen.
All right, Stephen, I apologize. You're up.
Yeah, are there any plans to put a solar array on the parking garage?
I'm gonna need you
Solar
to
array
speak.
in the parking garage.
Right.
Plans for a
Are there any plans for a solar array in the parking garage?
There aren't plans currently, and actually we do all of our solar arrays. We do them as a power purchase agreement, but we haven't planned on that at this point in time. We are looking at potential solar arrays on the existing building where we would have rooftop space available.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Chrissy.
Quick follow-up question to your question. I'm glad to hear that all staff will have a space. What about, will there be like a couple spaces for substitutes? Because I know Fleet had a lot of problems trying to get substitute teachers because of parking issues.
So that staff number includes that.
Okay, great, thank you.
As well as visitors.
I'm gonna move us forward. Stephen, your hand is still up. Is that held over or?
Sorry about that. That was an accident. My fault.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I did have one last
Yeah.
note on the parking. In the documents that DPS provided, they're estimating about 666 required spaces based on our zoning ordinance requirements.
666, and you're only going to have 300.
354 estimated in the parking garage, and then I'm not sure how many are you're calculating on-street parking. It's like 170.
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
But that,
But
that neighborhood, according to the modal study, available parking went all the way to Second Street, which seems just a little unrealistic.
We only park on 7th.
But Olivia, that goes back to the original, where we started the conversation. That goes back to the zoning requirements. That's not necessarily the staff requirements for the facility.
Correct.
So it's important to note that.
Yes.
Rob, you're on camera. You're going to have the last word, and then I am moving us to the next topic.
Thank you. Yeah, like was just said, that includes parking for all of the gym spaces in the whole campus. The one other note that I think it was left out that's very important. The size of the garage that APS is projecting is based on the parking needs for an increased size Montessori program. So this projection does account for future growth in the Montessori program and the parking needs for that. It's not just the new Career Center building, and I want to make sure that that's understood in the parking analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next topic I have on our list here is construction. Given what we've already sort of heard, that there's some unknowns on the construction topic that will need to be filled in with some additional detail, and I'm expecting that to cover that at a next PFRC meeting. Do you folks are there questions now for construction that would further discussion, or other things you would ask the APS and county staff to provide in terms of information about construction plans for the next PFRC meeting? I think that would be a productive use of the time. Yes.
Yeah, so my request would be that for the next meeting that we have a curbside management plan for pickup and drop off and buses for all phases of construction, so that we can understand what the expectations are of where staff are supposed to park, where students are expected to be picked up and dropped off, what the ADA accessibility looks like, again, because the whole campus is to remain open during the entire period. And again, representing one of the neighborhoods that surrounds the campus, I know that's a major concern to understand. Obviously, the construction period is going to be very challenging from that perspective, and we would like to understand what the planning is for that.
Okay. Yeah. Does staff have any questions on that? It's a pretty clear direction. Okay. Great. Anything else in terms of information we might be looking for with regards to construction? Chrissy.
Yeah, I was similar to Christine's comment question. I would like to have a more granular phasing, which I know construction usually runs behind in time, but I would like to have something more granular, like, for instance, this is being changed. One of the play spaces is being changed May 2023, which may not be a big deal, but if you live across the street, maybe you want to know that there's going to be construction equipment there, in the spring of 2023. So if we could have something more granular, like, generally at this point in time, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, maybe something per month. From 2023 to 2027, if you could have something, and I understand it won't be set in stone, but that would be great.
Can I make a suggestion with that? Because I think that's a really great idea. Is it possible to take, the image, I guess, like on 19 and sort of superimpose kind of when things would be available or unavailable, kind of like a targeted timeline, if it were? So it's both not just a written timeline, but a visualized timeline.
So we do have phasing plans in there on slides, I think 3 and 4.
3 and 4, did I missed that? I apologize.
We can elaborate on that.
Yeah, I think what I'm suggesting is actually superimposing over the various structures on the images when things are expected, construction to start, construction, completion. I understand those dates are going to change. Even if you just need to have a targeted start date so people know when things might be unavailable, I think that would be helpful. And
And then the question was about how that may change pickups and drop-offs and other things as that construction moves around the site.
Yes, I think that was all part of the request for
Yeah.
curbside management plan during construction. I think those were two separate things.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing to that, I would love to physically see the buses on the drawing, like how many buses come and how big they are and where we think they're gonna queue. And then so we can see that as well as where the pickup drop off is.
I just wanted to note that we did show that in the earlier BLPC PFRC meetings. But what we're presenting tonight is really the changes that we've made. And there really is no changes to that phasing, but we do have that information and we'll put it together. As I said, we do have it, we did share it. And the purpose of tonight's meeting was to talk about the changes of where we are. So sorry, but we didn't have that available.
Okay. I'm going to move us to the next topic, which is streetscape. Kathleen, I'm going to jump to you because you had questions on both lighting and trees.
Yes, I did want to understand the lighting, especially around the parking garage and the area that has the potential to be kind of dark, which is where the two buildings sort of meet. And so is a lighting plan being filed, and can you kind of elaborate on what that lighting plan might be in that?
So I would respond to that to say that the internal site lighting plan is still being developed. Obviously, the walkways that we're showing need to be properly illuminated. In terms of the perimeter of the site for streetscape, we'll be following the Arlington County streetscape around those areas that we're developing. So that's everything except for the areas adjacent to the existing MPSA. But all the rest of the perimeter will be getting the Arlington County typical Carlisle lights for illumination.
Steve, you might want to clarify too that there are some areas where we're putting the trees inboard rather than on the planting strip between the street and the sidewalk.
Right, and I don't know that we show it here, but there is a modified streetscape for certain locations where, as Jeff said, we're actually holding the trees to the inboard of the sidewalk instead of in the planting strip outside of the sidewalk.
What's the reasoning for that?
Because of the overhead lines that are still in place that we're not looking at undergrounding at this point in time, but we're providing a 6-foot strip so they could be undergrounded in the future.
And that's primarily along South Highland Street?
That is correct.
Okay.
We are putting them inboard on 9th as well, if you can see on the plan there.
I see.
Chrissy,
And the reason for that is because of the stormwater pipe. We don't have, it's difficult to get the soils that we need for the trees right along the edge of the street. So that's why we're pulling them inboard. And that's also one of the benefits of moving the narrowing the parking garage to give us that additional space.
Chrissy, do you have a follow-up on this conversation? This is a new topic in terms of.
I'm still talking. I had questions. I wanted to say something about the landscaping, streetscaping.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I wanted Kathleen to ask her question. Kathleen, did you also ask your question on the trees? Was that all part of together, or did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, actually, we did address the tree one. And so the only question I had about the lighting was, when will the lighting plan be available? I mean, I guess by the time of the use permit, but by the planning commission, is that when it's usually done?
So typically inboard of the site, that would be done during the permitting the technical permitting process for the building, which comes after the use permit.
Oh, okay. So we wouldn't even see it then. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Chrissy, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really love the landscaping and the streetscaping. I think it looks great. And I also wanted to say I really appreciate, I don't know if this goes beyond streetscaping, but I really appreciate this extra green space over here on 7th and Walter Reed. I think it looks really good. And I appreciate you guys taking into account what we've been saying about moving it a little farther away from the neighborhood. So I still am a little bit confused about what's going on. This is west of MIPSA. So is this natural green space going to be the green space for the little kids, the 3-year-olds?
So what you're pointing at there is an artificial turf field.
Is this proposed planting area? Okay, well, let me just put it this way. There's a very large fence surrounding from here to here. And no offense to my MIPSA friends, but I've had a lot of neighbors complain about the size of that fence. And I'm wondering if the new fence has to be as tall, can it be like the fence that's at Fleet, which I think is only 4 feet? Could we have because a lot of people feel that that fence, it basically says you're not welcome. I don't personally feel that way, but I've had a lot of neighbors say that. And it would bother me to see an 8-foot fence going around that corner.
It's 6 foot, but.
Or 6 foot, yeah.
So our intent there was to keep the existing 6-foot fence and extend that around that first play area on the corner.
Yeah.
And then coming down east would be 4-foot fence.
I'm just wondering, instead of 6 feet, if that can be 4 feet, something like they have at Fleet, because, and
A little more
being
welcoming.
a civic association president, people come to you with all kinds of things. And like I said, I'm a MIPSA booster, and I would just like to see something smaller, something more welcoming, something not.
Just so you know that it did have a 4-foot fence when they moved in. The first request they made was because it was so close to the sidewalk, they wanted it to be a 6-foot fence. So that fence was just changed 3 years ago. It's only going to be there for about 3 more years, 4 more years till MPSA would move to the
But
existing.
when you go around the corner, can you, instead of starting the 6 foot, like,
Well,
the 6 foot where it is, but where you're gonna add on to it, can it be 4 feet?
If you can convince the staff at the building that 4 foot fine to go around the corner, I have no problem going to 4 foot. We're putting it.
Because Patrick Henry was there for 30 years with a 4 feet.
It might have even been a 3-foot fence.
3-foot fence, everybody survived. Thank you.
We can ask staff.
I'll ask them too.
So for the natural grass area, like, is the fence gonna come around and go around both that area as opposed to separating out the natural grass?
Yes. One fence encompasses the natural grass as well as the play field to the west of that.
Because currently the grassy, the pseudo grassy area that's fenced off is supposed to be for like the ACCP PE or PE classes and stuff like that. But we've had people from the community use that as a dog park.
Not my community.
Well, people coming
They
in.
come from Alcova Heights. I tell everybody, I tell everybody in Arlington Heights, that is not a dog park.
And they have been coming in even when there's class in
No,
session.
I totally agree with
Which
you.
you're like, and so.
And dogs aren't allowed on the property.
No,
Right.
they're not. But because it is a fenced area, they think they can do that. And even though there's classes going on, they still think that they can bring their dogs on. And so I don't want the fencing to suggest that this is a dog park or this is available as a dog park, because
There'll be signage. I don't know what else to tell you about.
there is signage
I
now
know.
and people are unable to read it.
You're not going to have any PE space during construction, are you?
We don't have it now.
Well, I know that you have
that
that kind
area.
Yeah, but that whole area is now going to be gone.
Well, it's not usable anyway because it's so dangerous. It's pitted, it has this big cement block in the middle. It's not usable. It's, and there's the asphalt, remains of the asphalt.
In the interest of time, yes,
Really
final
quick-
thoughts?
Really
on
quick comment on
open
the,
space.
I guess what could make it less dog park like is including, like, for example, that playground space not fencing off separately because people won't run their dogs if there's a playground attached to it. Hopefully, they're smart. And then also, like, for the concern about the lack of outdoor gym space, again, that's kind of new to us anyways. So I personally, as a student, don't see that as like a major concern. If it would benefit construction or make it more efficient to use that space for construction equipment that would not impair the neighborhood's usage of
Used
other
for the
spaces.
footprint of the building, so it would go away.
Well, yeah, I know. But like, we're not gonna have this, right? So we'll all still be in the building doing like indoor gym.
Correct.
Which is fine.
Is this gonna be enough space for all of Mensa when it becomes K through 8?
So that design will be determined at that time, but yes, we're leaving play area back there for that purpose. That may even become a gymnasium addition to the facility at that time.
But there's no, maybe in the future Mensa could walk over here. Like, is there any law against like, oh, you're X years old and you can't walk X feet or?
I can't answer that. But I do think, Christy, that's all TBD as part of the MPSA move over to the existing legacy building.
Okay, the next topic we had was open space. Okay, does anyone have anything else to say on open space? I know we kind of may have addressed that to some degree in the streetscape conversation. Going once, going twice.
I'm very much looking forward to Mensa moving over to ACC in a beautiful open space.
That will cover us on open space then, thank you, Chrissy. So from our wrap-up discussion perspective, and we're going to be somewhat short on that because we are now running a little behind in the agenda. I'm going to recap a few things that I've heard. I think, Ted, if you would recap a few things you've heard, and then other thoughts, whether we've encompassed some things or have missed things, let's go through that. Certainly with regards to the parking and particularly the location and amount of ADA spaces and what the use plan is, especially for the parking on 9th Street, whether that's, something that the county can kind of give over to control of APS or not, that, we're hearing some feedback on that. Certainly something we'll want to address in ultimate letter and as a discussion point. I'm sure Transportation Committee will want to discuss that. Planning Commission will discuss that. The county board will want to hear about that. So that's important. We heard a lot about construction and information we'd like to see on the construction front. I expect that in a month and 2 days time, April 17th, which is when I expect we're having our next PFRC meeting, that will be the bulk of the conversation at that point. So that gives, about 4 weeks to get information together that's been requested on what construction phasing will look like. And in particular, I heard requests about access to the site, curbside management, what pickup drop-off are going to look like during the construction. We wanted to get some more information on the phasing of the project and hopefully some visual representation of when various elements will come together. Streetscape, we talked about that as well. With regards to, timing for a lighting plan, I'm hearing that will be after the use permit. And then, where some of the tree planting is going to be, and open space, there's a positive endorsement for the movement of the green space over to the 7th Street, Highland Street kind of area. Ed, would you like to add?
No, I think that did a great summation of everything that I was hearing at the same time. One thing that I found refreshing and positive was that the comments that I was hearing that you were recapping are all process and implementation questions and concerns. And when I go back to when we were first starting out, and it was concerns about the building itself and siting the building and things like that, and I didn't hear anything about that, or concerns about that. So I think that's, to me, was a big message about where we are and how far we've come and being able to make the project and the programming there a reality. If we're really just talking and concerning ourselves about, well, how do we implement it and how do we go through the processes to do that, not, I don't like the building or anything like that, which I think is a refreshing thing and a great thing. And I think, to be honest, I think it's something that each of you as a member of your stakeholder group and county staff and APS staff should take a little bit of pride in being able to move to get to this point. And you too.
Thank you. Okay, anything else from a recapping discussion, theme-oriented perspective? Yep.
I just don't want it to get lost about asking the county to unmeter these spaces, or perhaps unmeter the 9th Street spaces, or perhaps have some sort of exception for students with a card or a decal, because, I mean, I'm pretty sure as a neighborhood, we would support that officially, because I'd much rather have the students parking here on 9th Street than on 7th Street. So whatever we could do to support that, I would like to have that. I don't want that to get lost in the letter, the reports.
I think that, in my view, that was encompassed in the discussion of whether APS would be able to take over that, section of street from the county, but I think that is, specifically for student parking is something we can reference to as well. And Olivia has it covered.
I mean, I'd like to second that and also say, even if that became like a one-way street and you could put in slant parking, you could potentially create more opportunities. I'm very skeptical about the parking on Highland Street and 7th Street. The availability of it, it's not permanent parking. When you have cars on both sides of the road, the middle of the road gets narrow. We know a lot of buses are going to start going down those streets. So I just have a lot of questions about that. And that's why, for me, seeing the next steps of phasing is so important, to understand the logistics of this at every step, recognizing that the construction period is going to be challenging, and trying to be proactive to make it as feasible as possible for the neighborhood. And I do want to highlight again that if the county moves forward with the missing middle proposal, I think we have a lot of assumptions baked in here about the availability of residential parking based on existing zoning that I think will no longer be applicable. So,
understood. Thank you. Anything else for wrap up? All right, do you have any public speakers?
Hand up.
Okay, Stephen, you have 2 minutes. Stephen, you're on the PFRC. You're not for public comment. Did you have something that didn't get covered in the wrap up?
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, are there any plans that have been released so far for geothermal?
No, there are not. We're not entertaining geothermal at this time. It may become feasible once MPSA, or if MPSA gets knocked down in the future. At this time, we're not entertaining it.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any?
I want to add one thing first, Tim, is that we are putting in a water source heat pump system. There could be transition to geothermal in the future, but there is no way to put in a well field and maintain everything we need to maintain on this site as this building is being constructed.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Okay. Do we have any non-BLPC, PFRC public speaker requests?
No requests and comments, and no one has their hand up.
Okay.
I don't have any other comments.
In that case, you actually get 3 minutes back. Thank you.
Recording.